Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show with me from Prudential Utah Real Estate, Jim Lea. How are you, Jim?
Hey, good, Joe.
It's
Good to be here with you again this month.
Absolutely.
All right.
And I'm excited to talk about real estate because things are happening.
Exactly.
Stuff's going on.
Things are happening.
It's
active. It's so different than, say, a year, especially 2 years ago,
right,
when it was on the back burner. People just weren't interested in real estate, and now it's piquing their interest.
I think it's kind of funny the term pent-up frustration that we use in both in any of the markets really, but definitely in the real estate market. I think that's true because people start to hate their house a little bit. I hate my house, so I can understand.
You're ready to move on.
Oh boy, am I ready to move on? Yeah, I've had about enough. I've put a lot into it, and I love parts of it that I've put work into. But at the same time, I'm ready to move to something different. And the thing that's kind of interesting is that I fall into a very particular category, one that you said, well, I shouldn't say particular, it's actually probably one of the more common, and that's wanting to move in here in Summit County, Wasatch County, into something that is, I suppose we call it entry level.
Right. And overall, values are on the rise and our sales are up, but there's different segments of the market that are affected differently, more so than others. And the area you're looking in is, let's say, homes under that $500,000 mark, particularly in the county, more likely. That is one of the hottest markets we've got going right now.
Yeah.
Everyone, now is their opportunity to finally get into the market. The interest rates are right. The environment out there is just right.
Exactly.
People are just like you. You're ready to move on, to make that change, and you're saying, wow, now I could sell my house, or now I'm ready to make that move or whatever, and make that change.
And ironically, I think I fall into this other group, which is kind of exciting too, in that the house that I currently own is the one that you've heard all the news about, of these homes that are selling so quickly that they say that before they even get the post put up in the yard, the minute it hits the MLS, before they can even throw up the sign, it's already got a contract.
The neighbors
pretty
are
amazing
watching for their friends and so forth. Exactly. It's such an active market going on out there right now, and yet in certain other segments of our market, say condos in that $500,000 and up range, there's still sales going on, but there's not that activity, there's not that appreciation going on right now. So there are still great buys in that area for sure. But you're right, Joe, that particular market that you're looking in there right now, that's single family homes. The lower the price, the more the demand.
Yeah, and this was an interesting number you had here, inventory being down 21%. Across the board.
So think about that, 21% fewer properties available out there in the market now than there were a year ago. What that means is there's less to choose from.
Right.
And what that means is with less supply and increased demand, that puts a pressure on prices to begin to rise. And now we see this happening in areas around the country, California being the classic, where all of a sudden there's a spurt. There's activity going on, and it's almost too busy, but it's too good.
We talked about this before, of the idea of having a nice simmer, and boiling up a little bit, and just edging our way up, as opposed to a meteoric rise. Right.
And as you're suggesting, there's that pent-up demand out there for somebody like you that's been sitting on your hands for a while, and now you see the activity going on, you want to be a part of it. Right. And you see that there is that possibility to get out there and be a part of it.
Well, that is kind of an interesting part. There's a social aspect here that we probably don't talk about, where we see our neighbors moving to new neighborhoods. We see, we hear of our family who have changed venues, so to speak. And as we see that happen, just like we've done for so many other things, we want to be part of that too. And we want to change things up, and we want to be excited of a new home.
Exactly, and it was the exact opposite 2, 3, 4 years ago, when everyone was not focusing on moving or real estate. That was just not happening. And now with it happening, people want to be a part of it.
Well, and the idea, you mentioned condos. We've always talked about homes being a fairly decent return on investment. That there is something there. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't think of it as an investment, but it has that potential of making money for you. Condos have always potentially, been one that people say, no, look, you don't make any money on condos. Is that still the same, or is it?
Well, you
is it
don't make any
changing?
money on the condo, meaning when you buy it and rent it out, it doesn't necessarily carry itself.
Yes.
And that's absolutely right. And where you really make why do people buy a condo then? As a second home or an investment? Well, they buy it for personal use. That's the primary thing.
Right.
It's for the family. And they buy it for family unity, to bring that family together. And how does it pay off in the future? Ideally, appreciation.
Right.
If you wait long enough.
And at some point, your
It'll be-
kids have moved on. You don't need it for that purpose anymore, and you might
Exactly.
sell it.
Once in a while, occasionally we'll see a condo where the parents say, give it to the kids.
Yeah.
And so it's a hand down type thing. We don't see that as frequently in our market here as maybe some other markets like Sun Valley or Lake Tahoe sees a little bit more of that type of a market. We don't necessarily see that a lot.
Well, we have something different here, I think, with the city being so close. We're not exactly a destination city by itself.
Well, we're not removed.
As much.
We're not remote.
Yeah, removed. Yeah, we're not remote enough.
Right.
That's an interesting perspective. Because I suppose when you're a remote, then it's more like a cabin in the mountains. Is that
Right.
kind of the same
Yeah.
idea?
Yeah, exactly. A different feel to it.
Let's talk about vacant land. And I've looked at
Yes.
land up here, and that's, there's been some, not a lot.
Right. And the busiest or the most appreciating market that we have would be lots, single family lots. And the reason for that is there were no lot sales going on for the past couple of years because builders weren't buying them.
Right.
Because they weren't building. There wasn't a market out there for the spec home and so forth. Now, the builders have come back into our market and they're out there looking for inventory because all of a sudden people want to get involved. People are going to be looking at homes now and they want to be ready with a finished house by the time that the market peaks in their mind.
Right.
So we see a lot of that, and then the people that wanted to build a dream home are finally in a position now where let's buy the lot and we'll either build a dream home now or a little bit later, but now we can acquire the lot. So from going from almost zero lot sales to numerous lot sales now, what a difference.
Yeah,
what a
I'll
difference.
say. Well, let's talk about the perils that might be involved in buying lots. There are some considerations, right? There could be the possibility that your lot may only allow a certain size home, or it may have a time frame. Is that true too on when you must build?
Typically not. I can't even think of a project in town that has that time requirement of must build within such and such a time
And certainly
period.
that's changed a lot lately. We've become
Yeah.
a lot more patient, but there were,
Yes.
I know, I've heard
Yeah.
of some that
in the
had
past
that.
there were some areas like that, but now there isn't, so that is the good news. But what we're seeing is that with more startups, more lot purchases, and we'll start to see building going on this summer, in fact, that other areas in and out of town in particular, that there's going to be more excitement in areas that we haven't seen excitement in before, just outside of town, just because all of a sudden there's going to be new construction going on.
That takes us into what we can expect for this next year. What are some of the expectations you have?
Well, I certainly anticipate buyer demand to continue. Things that feeling of, wow, I want to be part of the whole deal, and interest rates looks like for at least the near future that they're going to be pretty good. I mean, think about it. When interest rates get to 5 or 6%, people are going to think that they missed the boat.
Yeah, they are.
And in the past, 5 or 6% was tremendous right now. But when you're talking 3 and 4%, it's all relative. But
Right.
it is so good right now. It's incredible. I say that, and yet over half of our purchases in Park City are for cash, which is interesting.
Yeah, I'll say.
And usually that's for the higher priced properties tend to command cash a little bit more.
Well, and
But
people that
lot
can do it
sales,
too.
people that can do it, and most of the lot sales typically do go for cash also.
Interesting.
That's kind of an interesting perspective.
Okay, I'm going to make your prediction.
Okay.
You ready for this? This is going on an edge. I never do
I'm
this.
gonna write this down.
My prediction is that we have a pretty fast rise once interest rates start to climb, and I bet we see interest rates go from where they are now up to 8-9% before they come back down to 6.
Good chance.
And I think that that's pretty likely because, as you said, people are going to think they missed the boat, they
Right.
won't buy. The interest rates will continue to rise, and what'll have to happen to get people to buy again, because it'll
Yep.
start to slow down, they'll
Yep.
have to lower them.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to
Well,
see if that happens.
it could easily
There's my
happen.
prediction. We'll see. Boy, I hope nobody keeps
Well,
this on
coming
tape
back
just
here,
to check, right? I know
let's
Jim
see, I'm
will.
gonna
Jim's
come
going to
back
hold
in
me
12
to
months.
it. It's going to be very
Say,
interesting.
Joe, damn, you were right.
Wouldn't that be good? A chocolate shake, if I'm correct.
Okay.
I don't know. Something. Anyway, well, anything else that we should be thinking about as we move into? I suppose what is kind of a prime time for mine is
Sure.
the spring and fall, and a little bit in summer.
You know, in the summertime, well, in general, we see more activity in the homes in the summertime, and perhaps more
Especially
activity.
building.
Yeah, and more activity in maybe the condos in the wintertime. But as of lately, our strongest market has still been the single-family home market, even last winter. And I think that's really going to continue into this summer, where within the city limits here, it's been very busy. Anything under $1 million, there's people out there looking.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to spread between that $1 million, $1.5 million, up to $2 million, where there was a lot of inventory before. Now those homes are starting to sell. So it's creeping upward is what we're seeing,
Yeah.
is the demand.
Well, having an expert involved in this particular area is important, because knowing what those thresholds are,
Yep.
they're very liquid. They change all the time, and there's certainly an opportunity there, as you mentioned. If you've got one of those properties that's being sought after, you may be fortunate enough to have some people arguing on your front lawn about who's going to get the home.
And another thing I might mention is that instant gratification concept of, if your house or your condo is in prime condition and ready to go. In other words, somebody comes in, they don't have to work on it or anything, so much the better. So much more value is had by having it in that condition, especially the condos.
Right.
Whereas if someone, because typically somebody buying a condo might be 1,000 miles away, and they would just as soon have it bring my toothbrush and I move in, as opposed to, well, I have to
That's
work on
great.
it and do this, because they're going to discount your price for that.
In other words, go to Home Depot. That's what we're saying. Get the house up
That's
to
right.
snuff, get it ready
Sure.
to go, get it ready to sell. And of course, that's another part where bringing in a professional helps, because knowing what people are going to think is a home I can bring my toothbrush to
Yes.
is
yes.
not maybe what you think you can bring your toothbrush to. You've been living in it a while. Just remember that.
So there's high demand now for the handyman and for the contractors, and those contractors, they're getting busy. All of a
good
sudden,
news.
it's not like it was before. It's like it used to be way back, where, you know, where's the contractor? Well, they're too busy.
Wow.
And they're hopping, which is great to see.
That's great news.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Jim Lea, it's great
Okay.
having you here on the show as well.
My pleasure.
And
My
giving
pleasure,
people
Joe.
the perspective that
We're going to keep you in mind here, and I'm
that's
going to
right.
remember your prediction.
Remember that. Yeah. Well, like I said, having you here to give the perspective of only what a real estate agent can give. Certainly appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Well, there is more coming up on the Mountain Morning Show. We've got all of it coming up right after this message.